With Commander nowadays, there's one word that pops into my head all the time, and that's efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. So I compiled a list of the most impactful cards for 1 mana so we can keep our curves low, but our power level high. These are the best cards that I've seen played against me, so tell me what you think. But quickly, before I start the video, I'm the Patchwork Commander. I make weekly videos every single Friday about Commander content, so if you like the content, please hit that subscribe button. It helps out a ton. So let's get into this list and power up our decks. And you really think I could start off this list without putting this card number 1? That's Sol Ring. It's the number 1 staple of Commander, hands down, period. I don't care what type of format you play, this is number 1. Tapping for 2 colorless mana for 1 mana is just an insane rate, and it's a rate that I live by, and it's a staple of all of my decks because this card's awesome. The next card on this list is as insane as Sol Ring, and that's Mana Vault. Tapping for 3 mana with just 1 mana invested is insane. It does come with the disadvantage of it doesn't untap during your next untap step if you've tapped it, and you lose 1 life if you don't untap it, but it has this amazing ability to pay 4 mana to untap it again if you need it in the future rounds. I love this card because playing a 5-drop on turn 2 is crazy. I've played Commanders on turn 2 because of this card, and it just speeds up my game plan by 10. Put this card in your deck if you want your deck to run like nitrous. This is a crazy card. The next card on this list makes token strategies and aristocrats insane, and I think you might have heard of it, and that's Skullclamp. The best equipment ever made, hands down. It costs 1 mana and 1 mana to equip, and what does it do? Well, if equipped creature dies, you draw 2 cards, and the equipped creature gets +1, -1. This is great in any deck that can make 1/1 creatures because you immediately pay 1 mana and all of a sudden that 1 mana has turned into 2 cards. This is the most efficient rate for card draw you'll find in any deck, no matter what deck it is. This card is absolutely insane. Love this card, and I think it should even go in probably more decks because there's so many decks that play 1/1 creatures or small creatures that you just love to Skullclamp away. The last artifact on this list is an honorable mention, but I want to put it in there nevertheless. It costs 1 mana for Commander's Plate, and this card provides as much protection as any sword does. And it only costs 3 mana to equip to any commander, or 5 mana to equip to any creature. And the equipped creature gets +3/+3 and protection from every color that's not in the commander's color identity. And I love this in monocolor decks because basically it's 4 color protection because it's protection from every other color that you're not playing. It's amazing and has stopped so many removal spells and really just gotten my commander to deal so much extra damage and gotten so much more value out of my commanders. My commanders are always very powerful, and using this to protect them is like the best security blanket I've ever used. I think white is one of the more interesting colors on this list because it does so many different things, and my number 1 card is pretty obvious. It's the best removal spell ever printed, and that's Swords of Plowshares, costing only 1 mana and exiling any creature, and then its controller gains life equal to the creature's power. But who cares about gaining some extra life? Because your life is a resource. And who cares if you give your opponents, I don't know, 5 extra life, 10 extra life? It's probably saving you 10 damage in the long run, or more, because people's commanders are so powerful. Moving on to the next card, I have Land Tax. This card is awesome. Basically, if one of your opponents controls more lands than you, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may look for 3 basics of any type, and you can put them into your hand. Now this is awesome, because it does a lot of things for you. First of all, it color fixes, and it smooths out your draws. Yes, I know it doesn't make that big of a difference to thin out your deck, but being able to take away 3 lands out of your next draws is a huge advantage. Because if you miss out on land drops nowadays, it can hurt you so bad. I think the worst games that I've ever played personally is when I can't play my spells on curve, and that's just because I missed a land drop. The next and last card for white, I love this card because it's good in 2 ways, and that's Sigarda's Aid. I think this card is awesome because not only does it give your equipments flash, which is a great combat trick. Imagine your opponent doesn't block and all of a sudden you can just put a Colossus hammer and give it double strike. All of a sudden you've killed that player. I love this card, but it does another thing. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield, it gets attached to target creature. That's crazy. So not only for 1 mana are you getting flash, but you're also cheating on mana cost. This card does so much in a white deck that I don't know why you wouldn't run it. Could you imagine playing a Sun Forger at instant speed? Not only does it deal 4 damage, but now you can use the unequip cost to just search for any instant or sorcery out of your deck. And that's basically free because of Sigarda's aid. This card is crazy for 1 mana. Cheating of mana cost is great in itself, but at 1 mana, this card blows me away and blows me out every time I played against it. I think red is one of the most unique colors on this list because I've got a card at my last spot that's, I think, one of the better ramp options in all of Commander nowadays. But I'm going to start off red with Gamble. Now this card is really, as the card says, it's a gamble. But the amazing part, for 1 mana, you can tutor a card into your hand at sorcery speed, but you have to discard a card at random. So what I like to do with this card is search for an early mana rock, like Soul Ring or Mana Vault. So if I discard it, it's not the end of the world, but at the same time, if I get to play it, my game gets ramped up to 10. I love putting Gamble in the deck because it's one of the more fun ways to have a tutor in your deck because there's always the chance you're going to discard a card. I love this card, even though it's a gamble, I think it's worth it no matter what happens. And the next card is Vandal Blast. This card is really easy. For 1 mana, it just destroys an artifact you don't control. And you can even overload this for 4 and a red, and it basically means that instead of saying destroy target artifact you don't control, it destroys all artifacts you don't control. The versatility on this card is why I love it. Because if you only want a removal spell for 1 mana to destroy an artifact, perfect, you've got it covered. If you want to destroy all your opponent's stuff, imagine playing an artifacts deck or anything else. You know how much I like destroying artifacts on the battlefield, and this card just wipes them all away. It sets people back to the start of the game, if you want it to. The next card on this list I thought was really spicy, and that's Curse of Opulence. Only costing 1 mana, you get to curse a player. Yeah, I said it, curse. This card does so much for me whenever I play it. The first thing it does is you enchant a player. Whenever an enchanted player is attacked, you get a gold token. And then each player that attacks him does the same. So what happens is, if your opponents attack the person that's enchanted by this curse, you get a gold token and they get a gold token. If you attack them with a creature, then only you get that gold token. And I love this card for 2 reasons. I love cards that just make your opponents attack other players other than you, and you can build your value over time and kind of deal with players later. Because then you've really got a good engine going with all this mana ramp that this will get you. But not only that, it also gives you great mana. Like, I love storing up a gold token, and whenever I need it, maybe I have a 1 mana instant that I can play because I have a gold token now. And I've used this as a tool for people not to attack me, and I still get gold tokens off of it. I love this card, and I think it's a sneaky good card. Ah, yes, we got to green. And what does green do best? Well, it gets mana dorks on the battlefield, and that's all gotta start off with Birds of Paradise. For 1 mana, it's a flying creature, it's an 0/1, and it says tap to add 1 color of any mana to your mana pool. This is basically just a mana rock for 1 mana, and the great part is it taps for any color. I put this in my 5-color Joda deck because it's just going to get me Joda out faster, plus it gives me the color fixing that I need because I want to play my big stuff out early, and this card is great for that. The next card on this list is a hate card, but it's come in so clutch for me so many times, I don't even consider it a hate card. I just think it's a good card at this point, and that's Veil of Summer. For 1 mana, this instant draws you a card if your opponent's played a blue or black spell. It says spells you control can't be countered, and it also says you and permanents you control have hexproof from blue or black spells. This card is great. It's been called the 1 mana cryptic command because it stops a counterspell for 1 mana and it draws you a card. There's so much value in this card. Just the fact if you pay 1 mana and draw a card, this isn't the worst card in the world if you have to do that. But the card does so much. It works as well as Heroic Intervention in decks I play it in, but it costs 1 less mana. That's insane. Being able to stop counter spells, being able to negate a kill spell because it also has protection from black. This card is not just a hate card. This card is great because it stops 2 of the most powerful colors. This next green card basically defines what green does. And for 1 mana, Exploration, being able to play 2 lands a turn is crazy. Can you imagine what this card does in a 4-color Omnath? No, you can't, because you don't want to. Can you imagine you play this card in Crucible of Worlds? Ugh. Like, it is insane how much value you're going to get. Not only are you going to get 4 mana every single turn, you're probably going to deal 4 damage to each player and each planeswalker every single turn. Like, I'm not even joking. You can trigger Omnath's ability on other people's turn. Exploration is probably the best definition of green, and this card is insane. But that's it from me, guys. Enjoy your weekend. Patrick Commander is out.